Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Are you ready for the word?
Yes, sir.
Turn to 3 John.
Amen.
The Sabbath is loaded down with benefits.
Yes, sir.
Aren't you glad you learned that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
3 John, verse 1. The elder unto the well-beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. For I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in you, even as you walk in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Beloved, you do faithfully whatsoever you do to the brethren and to strangers, which have borne witness of your charity before the assembly, whom if you bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, you shall do well, because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we might be fellow helpers to the truth. Last week, we talked about the title by which John referred to Gaius. 3 times in 5 verses, he called him well-beloved or beloved. Another time, he told him that he loved him. So 4 times in 5 verses, he refers to this man that was very lovable. That title and those words gave us a glimpse into the life of that man, into the life of Gaius. We were able to see that he was a man who walked in truth and was lovable.
Right.
The challenge we put forth last week was this, and that is to make sure that if people reject us, we want to make sure they're rejecting us because of the truth that we walk in and not because of the way we walk in that truth.
Right.
We want to make sure that we guard against becoming inflated, proud, arrogant, by or because of any knowledge that we have.
Yes, sir.
1 Corinthians 8, let me read that one to you again. It says, Now as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up. Knowledge puffs up. But charity edifieth. And if any man think he knows anything, you remember what it said about that? If any man think he knows anything, what's the follow-up to that verse, or that phrase? He knows nothing yet as he ought to know. Any man, doesn't matter who he is, if he thinks he knows anything, that's fine. He very well may, but he doesn't know everything. That's the point. He doesn't know everything. This doesn't mean that we don't want knowledge. We want knowledge. Hosea 4 says this, My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also will reject you. So rejecting knowledge is a decision that results in destruction. You want knowledge.
Yes, sir.
You don't want to look at knowledge and say, well, knowledge puffs up. I don't want any of that. No, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So we don't want to reject it, but we don't want, with all, or what we do want with all diligence is to guard against the side effect of becoming puffed up by any knowledge that we get. So today, we're going to talk about Gaius again, and I want to talk more about him for 2 reasons. One, I want to re-emphasize how important it is that we develop our lovableness.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Right.
Well, I'm already lovable. Good. We want to become more lovable.
Yes, sir.
All right? There's nothing spiritual about being a sourpuss. No. And there's nothing spiritual about being a doctrine police.
Right.
The one who runs around blowing the whistle every time they think somebody said or did something wrong.
Right.
You know, you mispronounce a Hebrew word or a Hebrew name. They blow the whistle on you.
Yeah.
You said Yeshua instead of Yahushua. You said Yahweh instead of Yahuwah or whatever.
Right.
Or you made the bad mistake of saying Jesus instead of Yahushua. Someone says Lord or God or church and the whistles go off.
Right.
There are doctrine police out there that want to correct every minor mistake or every mistake they think that's being made. There's nothing spiritual about being the doctrine police.
Right.
We know them in the scriptures as the Pharisees.
Yeah. That's true.
We have to remember that no man knows anything yet as he ought to know.
Yes, sir.
We all are in a stage of growth. We may be further along than someone else, but you can also be well assured that there are some out there who are further along than you, or
Right.
than me, or than we.
Right.
Boy, I know more than they do. Fine, turn look other way.
Yes, sir.
There's somebody out there that knows more than you do.
Right.
Because we don't any of us know everything yet as we ought to know.
Right.
We're all on the same page.
Yes, sir.
So, we need to help one another to learn, keep, and do Torah.
Amen.
We're not supposed to attack one another.
Right.
We're not supposed to find someone who doesn't yet know what we know and try to make them feel inferior or condemned because they don't yet know it. There's nothing spiritual about being a doctrine police. Doctrine police is not one of the gifts of the Ruach HaKodesh. It's not listed as one of the gifts.
Right.
So this morning I want to talk more about Gaius because I want to reemphasize how important it is that we develop being lovable people.
Amen.
Now listen, if the people who are trying their level best to walk in truth hate to see us coming, the problem is not in their heart.
Right.
The problem is us.
Right.
Need me to say that again? If people who are trying their level best to walk in truth hate to see us coming, the problem's not in their heart.
Right.
All right?
Yes, sir.
We don't want to be that guy.
Right.
We want to be well beloved, lovable, loving, friendly, helpful, encouraging. We want people who are wanting to walk in truth to love being around us.
Right.
Right?
Yes, sir.
The second reason I want to talk more about Gaius is because I want to make sure that we understand the balance of what it means to walk in truth and be the well-beloved. There is a balance there. We cannot compromise the walking in truth in order to be lovable.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that as well, but probably not today. We'll talk about that next week. But I have two reasons that I wanted to go back to 3 John, and those are the two reasons. So let's deal with number one this morning right now. Developing lovableness. Becoming more lovable. And here's what I mean by that. We have to purpose in our heart to give people room to grow. In Acts 15, that's what Acts 15 is all about. Go back today and spend some time reading that. Acts 15 is about giving people room to grow. The pagan Gentiles were being born again, baptized in water, and baptized in the Ruach HaKodesh. They were coming into the truth, which means they were leaving their pagan past behind, where they worshiped sun gods and fertility gods on Sunday, and they were showing up at the synagogues on the Sabbath day. And they knew nothing when they showed up, or knew very little when they showed up. The Jews who had been taught Torah all of their lives and had also accepted Yeshua as the Messiah had far more knowledge of how a believer should conduct themselves than did the Gentiles who were now showing up. That's the reason we read this in Romans 3. It says, "What advantage then has the Jew? Or what profit is there of circumcision?" And then the answer comes in the next verse, "Much every way."
Yeah.
What advantage does a Jew have? A lot.
Yeah.
Why? Because that unto them, Romans 3:2, because unto them were committed the oracles of Elohim.
Yeah.
Here's what that means. No matter which way you turn it, no matter how you look at it, the Jews have an advantage. Why do they have advantage? Or how do they have an advantage? because the oracles of Yahweh were committed to them. The word translated oracles just simply means utterances. The utterances of Yahweh were committed to them. That's what Torah is. Somebody ask you, what is Torah? Well, we know what Torah means. It means instruction, right? But it is instruction because it's what Yahweh uttered. Yeah. The Torah is the written down witness of what Yahweh himself uttered in order for man to be able to enter into a covenant with him. Those utterances were committed to the Jews for safekeeping. And they have been persecuted, hated, and always on the brink of utter destruction because they were and are the guardians of that truth. So in Acts, Gentiles who were once alienated from the commonwealth of Israel and who had absolutely no access into the covenant are now being brought nigh or brought into a covenant relationship with Yahweh by the blood of the Messiah. That's what Ephesians 2 tells us. They were once alienated from the commonwealth. They were alienated from Yahweh. They had no access, but by the blood of the Messiah, they now have access into that covenant with Yahweh. These Gentiles are coming in, and they don't know diddly squat about the Sabbath. They don't know diddly squat about circumcision, the Moedim. They don't know how to keep the Sabbath. They walk in, and the first thing they hear is Shabbat Shalom. They have no clue what that means. What? We say howdy. They said Shabbat Shalom. What does that mean? They were confused, you understand. They knew nothing. They didn't know who Moshe was. They didn't know the difference between the Torah and the Tanakh. They didn't know the difference between what is clean and unclean. They knew nothing. Didn't teach it in the pagan temples they went to. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
They want to know. That's the reason they showed up, but they don't know. Right. They have come because they're interested in learning. Here's what they know. They know they need to know what they don't know. And they've come to the only place that they hope they can learn what they need to know. They know that they cannot follow the Messiah who has saved them without following the Messiah who saved them. Right. And they know that the Messiah that saved them was a Torah-keeping Messiah. Right. So if they're going to follow him, they got to come to a place where Torah is taught. Yes, right. And that's the reason they showed up. They know that the Messiah that saved them and delivered them, who went back into the heavenly, sent the Ruach HaKodesh who has baptized them, they know that Messiah kept the Sabbath. They know that Messiah walked in complete obedience to Torah, so they have come to the place that teaches Torah that they might learn Torah. Yeah. Are you with me? And what a commotion it caused when they showed up. You had the doctrine police inside the synagogue losing their minds when all of these people leaving paganism walked in. Imagine, if you will, today a visitor might show up and a doctrine police might say something like this. Hey, we don't say God, Lord, or Jesus in here. Don't use that term. Yeah. Or, hey, do you know anything about the Moedim yet? That's what a doctrine police might do today. Right. But in Acts 15, the doctrine police were walking up to visitors in the synagogue and saying this: hey, you circumcised? Yeah. You need to be. We can take care of that today while you're here. I'm serious. You do know that if you ain't been circumcised yet, you're still going to hell. I wouldn't walk out of here uncircumcised if I was you. And the visitor is saying, what? You want to do what to me and my 4 sons? Right? What is that? What are you talking about? Yeah. What's the relevance of it? They don't have a clue. Right. And the wife says to the husband, honey, maybe you ought to go ahead and get that done. And then the doctrine police says to her, shh, you're not allowed to talk in here. And who are you to be bossing him around? You can't tell him what to do. So they're getting it from every side, you understand?
Yep.
You can imagine the chaos that was taking place as people were exiting paganism and coming into covenant with the true Elohim, Yahweh, by and through his son Yahushua, being baptized in the Ruach HaKodesh. You can imagine the chaos these people were feeling as they walked into the synagogue and encountering all of these Jewish doctrine police, Judaizers, we would call them. And the Jews, you can imagine how shocked they were by all of these people who are now coming in, who've never been there before, and who are disrupting everything that they've gotten used to and accustomed to. Those coming in were shocked by how domineering, pushy, and adamant that those who were already in the faith were, and those who were already in there were shocked by how ignorant those coming in actually were. There was a clash, and the clash resulted in a convention being called and the matter being carried to the apostles to decide. The doctrine police were on one side of the aisle saying, we need to set up a hospitality team in every synagogue who meets and greets all newcomers, not combers. We need to set up a hospitality team who will meet and greet all newcomers and take them to a back room and get them circumcised immediately because they're not saved until they are. And on the other side of the aisle, Paul and Barnabas stood saying, no, we don't need to do that because the Ruach HaKodesh did not require it before he entered into them. Right. And it is wrong for us to require it before we let them enter in where we are. Yeah. If the Ruach HaKodesh was okay with them, we need to learn to be okay with them. Peter even testified, and I want you to turn to Acts 15 and let's look at his testimony concerning this matter. What Peter said that day is vital information to us so that we can learn in our day and time how to be lovable. Are you there? Acts 15, look in verse 7. Verse 7. And when there had been much disputing, you understand this discussion was lengthy and heated. Doesn't say when there had been much hugging and weeping and no. When there had been much disputing, Peter rose up and said unto them, men and brethren, you know how that a good while ago Elohim made a choice among us, that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe. Peter, listen to what Peter said. I didn't choose to go. It was not my choice. I was chosen and I was sent. And Elohim, verse 8, which knows the hearts, bear them witness, giving them the Ruach HaKodesh, even as he did unto us. And he put no difference between us and them, purifying their hearts by faith. Listen very closely to what Peter said there in verse 9. Purifying their hearts by faith. That is what salvation is, and we need to get a hold of that. At salvation, that's what happens. At salvation, we do not get all knowledge poured into us. Right. We don't have every wrong thought and every wrong doctrine vacuumed out of our heads by the Ruach HaKodesh. Oh, okay, he's been saved. And suck every bit of bad thinking and bad doctrine out of us. Right? Right. Doesn't happen. We don't immediately know exactly what to say, and we don't immediately know exactly how to live. And from that point on, everything we do is perfect. No. Right? No, what does it say there? What happened? What did Peter say happened to them when they were delivered out of the damnation of the paganism they lived in? What did Peter say happened to them? Their hearts got purified. Right. By faith. Well, in salvation, our hearts get purified. Then we have to work out our salvation. Right. We have to study to show ourselves approved. We have to begin the journey of learning Torah. And that journey of learning is done line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Right. Right? And we are responsible for making sure we do that. That we learn, keep, and do Torah. But we are responsible for that, but it does not ever happen in an instant.
Right.
For us or for others, it's a journey.
Yes, sir.
So Peter's making a vital point to that assembly here in Acts 15. He's saying to them, these converts coming into our assembly have a lot to clean up on the outside, but their hearts were purified by faith. And we need to acknowledge that. All of us may be at different places in our journey, but the important factor to remember is that we are all on a journey.
Right.
Let's not attack someone who is just starting.
Right.
Let's be as patient with them as the Ruach HaKodesh has been with us.
Right. Amen.
No matter who we meet on the journey, whether today is their first day to come in, they know nothing, that just today is their first day. Or whether they have been in it for 5 years but still may not be quite where we are, or whether they've been in it for 20 years, doesn't matter where they're at in their journey. Let's learn to be as patient with them
Right.
as the Ruach HaKodesh was with us when we knew diddly squat.
Right. Amen.
Right?
Yes, sir.
In Acts 15, James the elder then spoke. Listen to him. Verse 13. And after they held their peace, James answered, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. Simeon, or Peter, has declared how Elohim at the first did visit the Gentiles to take out of them a people for his name. Let's stop right there, because we don't need to just go find our point. We need to pay attention to everything James said. Now listen to what he said. Take out. That's very important.
Yeah.
He's going to take out of them a people for his name.
Yeah.
If the Messiah has saved you, you are no longer a Gentile. Boy, people need to get that.
Yeah.
If you have been saved by faith by the Messiah, you are no longer a Gentile. And if you're no longer a Gentile, you should not live as a Gentile, and you should not think Gentiles have different rules by which to live.
Right.
Messiah takes us out from among the Gentiles. We are told in the scripture, Ephesians 2, I quoted a while ago, Gentiles are alienated from the commonwealth. They're alienated from the promises. They're alienated from a covenant with Yahweh. Messiah takes us out from there and brings us in. We're now grafted into Israel. We become the seed of Abraham by faith. I am not a Gentile. I used to be.
Yep.
But now I have been grafted into Israel. I can call Abraham my father.
Yes, sir.
I am his seed.
Yes, sir.
There's neither Jew nor Gentile in this thing. We become one new creation. That creation is part of Israel.
Amen.
Doesn't say there isn't an American or an Israeli. It says there's neither Jew nor Gentile. So I'm not Jewish and I'm not Gentile, but I am grafted into Israel. So we come out from among the Gentiles. Verse 15. And to this agree the words of the prophets, as it is written. After this I will return and will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down. I will build again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up, that the residue of men might seek after Yahweh, and all the Gentiles, upon whom my name is called, says Yahweh, who does all these things. So James's point is, Yahweh is calling out to all men everywhere to seek him and to know him. That is Jew and Gentile alike. He's calling out to all of them. So these who are coming in among us now, here's James' point. Yahweh's calling out to all men. So these that are coming into our synagogues now, this is the work of Yahweh, and we need to recognize that. It was prophesied, he said. He's quoting Amos. It was prophesied, so we need to recognize that this is his work. Now think about that for a moment. Yahweh calls a person out of the futile works of paganism and denominational delusion and into truth, and they encounter you. Yahweh called them out of the delusion and deception they were living in, and they encounter you. Do they get encouraged to learn more? Or do they run back to where they were because they found you to be mean-spirited, critical, and haughty, and wanted nothing to do with it? That's the point James is making. James is saying this is the work of Yahweh. And who are you to now run these people out of the synagogue? Right? Verse 18. Known unto Elohim are all his works from the beginning of the world. Let me paraphrase that. James said, in case you was having trouble with what I said in verse 17, let me restate it. Yahweh knows what he's doing. Rest assured, he knows what he's doing, and this is his work. We may wish that everyone who comes in was immediately brought up to speed and made as smart as we are. But it doesn't work that way.
Right.
And Yahweh knows what he's doing. If someone escapes the deception of religion and comes into the truth of Torah, it isn't because we were so persuasive.
Right.
It is because Yahweh lifted the veil from their eyes so they could see. He did it, not us, right?
Yes, sir.
He did it, and we need to let him keep doing what he does.
Yes, sir.
Making sure that we are helping and not hindering what he's doing.
Amen.
Which brings us to the next verse. Are you there? Verse 19. Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Elohim. Now, a lot of people take and twist James's words there in verse 19 too, and they shouldn't. James is not saying that Torah is trouble and too difficult to learn, and we shouldn't be burdening people with Torah. Not at all. Quite the contrary. In verse 21, James is going to make it clear that these converts should be in the synagogue every Sabbath, and while they are there, they will be learning Torah and should be learning Torah. So verse 19, he's not saying Torah is too difficult to learn. Listen carefully to his sentence. We should not trouble them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Yahweh. Let's break that down into two things. Number one, Gentiles have to come out from among the Gentiles and turn to Yahweh. James is acknowledging that and making that point.
Yeah.
We're not expecting them to come in and make no changes. They should come out from among the Gentiles and turn to Yahweh. You cannot remain a Gentile and serve Yahweh.
Right.
Impossible. Gentiles are alienated, so you don't want to remain a Gentile.
Right.
James fully expects them to turn to Yahweh, and to turn to Yahweh means you know his utterances, which is Torah, and you follow those. But turning to Yahweh doesn't automatically mean that you immediately know everything you need to know and act every way you're supposed to act.
Right.
Right? So the first point that James is going to make is Gentiles had to come out from among the Gentiles. But the second point that James makes is we should not trouble them. I want you to look that word up. Make a note of it there and just look it up later. That word means to continue. Everybody say continue.
Continue.
We should not continue to harass and annoy them. Harass and annoy. This is a perfect description of what many times happens in the Hebraic roots assemblies and on any social media site that deals with Hebraic roots. There are trolls out there. There are doctrine police out there who just love to harass and annoy people.
Yeah.
They're not converting anybody. They're not changing anybody's mind and heart. They're not educating, training, helping, encouraging anybody. They're just harassing and annoying people. James spoke up and said to the Jews who were doing this, it's time for this nonsense to stop.
Right.
Quit harassing these people who are not yet where you are. Yahweh brought them in. Yahweh's doing a work in them. Let Yahweh complete that which He started. You leave them alone.
Yeah.
Love on them. Give them room to grow.
Yes, sir.
Give them the same opportunity that you have had every Sabbath to develop and to grow.
Amen.
Give them that same opportunity. But James also had some instruction for those who were coming into the assembly. It wasn't just for the Jews. He had instruction for those who were coming into the assembly too. Listen to it in verse 20. But that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, from fornication, from things strangled, and from blood. For Moshe of old time has in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogue every Sabbath day. Let's break that down, shall we? Here's what James said. James said to those who had been Gentiles and had been left there and brought in, James said to them, you should understand that the utterances of Yahweh were given to Moshe, and they are written in what we call Torah, and you should be in the synagogue every Sabbath day where this is being read and preached so that you can learn these oracles.
Amen.
That's what he's saying to them. They should be in the synagogue. That's good instruction.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes people are good at coming out of the deception they were in, but they're not so good at coming in to where they need to be.
Right.
Sometimes it's because they don't really know where to go. And that's okay, because I was there, weren't you?
Right.
Yes.
I didn't really know where I could go. Sometimes they don't come in because they think they can learn all they need to know from YouTube or a podcast.
Right.
Sometimes they don't come in because they think they know more than any teacher or preacher they've ever heard, and they don't want to waste their time assembling together to be taught by that person.
Right.
Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that the Sabbath, when it's given to us in Leviticus 23, the Sabbath says there is to be a holy convocation.
Right.
The truth is we should not forsake the assembling of ourselves together every Sabbath so that the utterances of Yahweh written down by Moshe can be preached.
Yes, sir.
James fully expects those who had come out of paganism into the synagogue. He expected them to be there every Sabbath, and he expected them to listen to somebody preach Moshe.
Yes.
Preach Moses.
Yes, sir.
Right? The second thing he's going to say to these coming out of paganism is number one, he says, you need to be in the synagogue every Sabbath. Number two, he says, you need to come out from among them that you've been among.
Yeah.
You're not only coming in, you're coming out. Those who are coming in have to understand that they have to come out in order to come in. You can't keep your feet in both places.
Right.
There are things, listen, this is what James is saying to them. There are things we're going to give you time to learn.
Yeah.
We had to learn them. We started a lot earlier than you did. Our parents started reading us this when we were barely able to toddle around. We've had time to learn it. We're going to give you time to learn it. But there are some things that you have to know immediately. And primarily that is this. You cannot keep walking in paganism and walk in truth at the same time. We'll give you time to learn how to walk in truth, but we cannot give you time to learn how to not walk in paganism. You should be bright enough to figure out what's pagan and get out of it.
Get out.
Cut the umbilical cord. Cut every tentacle of that off of you. Walk out of that. We will not tolerate you bringing that into the synagogue. We will not tolerate you saying, well, we did some of this in paganism and it was pretty fun. It means a lot to us. We can now say that's about the Messiah and bring it in over here. James says, no.
Right.
You're not doing that. You're going to have to walk away from all of that in order to walk into here.
Yes,
Right?
Yes, sir.
You cannot walk in paganism and walk in truth at the same time. James's instruction is simple. Everything that was pagan that you were doing, stop it. Abstain from it. Get it out of your life. Don't try to rebaptize it. Don't try to reassign it meaning. Don't try to adapt it, adopt it. Get it out of your life. We will not tolerate it in here. Okay? We will give you room to grow, but you cannot bring your pagan practices here, and you cannot fellowship with us and keep practicing paganism.
Amen.
All right? Verse 20. We write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, from fornication, from things strangled, from blood. Everything listed there in that verse has to do with paganism. Even the fornication. Don't think that he's changed the subject and he's dealing with some other matter.
Right.
Even the word pagan, fornication is dealing with paganism. Turn to Exodus 34 for just a moment. I want to show you how in the context we know exactly what James was talking about. He's talking about false religion here. He's not talking about sex when he uses the word fornication. Exodus 34 verse 11. Observe thou that which I command you this day. Behold, I drive out before you the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you go, lest it be for a snare in the midst of you, but you shall destroy their altars, break down their images, cut down their groves. Let's stop there. We always make this point, but you can't make it too many times. He didn't say rededicate these places.
Right.
He didn't say go in and sprinkle blood on them. He didn't say march around them 7 times and claim them for Yahweh in his kingdom.
Right.
What did he say do?
Destroy them.
Break them, cut them down, destroy them. Verse 14, for you shall worship no other Elohim, for Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous Elohim. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and you go a-whoring after their Elohims, and do sacrifice unto their Elohims, and one call you, and you eat his sacrifice, and you take of their daughters unto your sons, and their daughters go a-whoring after their Elohim, and make your sons go a-whoring after their Elohims. See him using the word a-whoring? The context of James' word is coming back to instruction like we find in Exodus 34. The context of James' words indicates that this is what he's talking about. He wants those coming in to the synagogue to understand that there has to be a clean break from past pagan rituals, because in the sight of Yahweh, if they try to bring that stuff over into the synagogue, they are committing spiritual whoredom or spiritual fornication.
Right.
And Yahweh will not tolerate it.
Right.
So James said, come on in. James turned to the Jews and said, stop harassing them. Stop annoying them. Turn to those coming out of the Gentile nations and said, come on in. We will love you. We will be kind. We will be patient. But we do expect those of you who are coming in to reject the paganism that you are walking away from. We do expect you to leave it outside the door and not to bring it in here.
Right.
And we expect you to not bring your honey roasted ham to our covered dish lunches after the Sabbath service.
Right. Right.
Right? That's what he's, I mean, literally, that's what he's saying.
Right.
We're going to have brotherhood breakfast next Sabbath. We do not want any bacon there.
Right.
That's what he's saying to.
Yes.
We who know a lot can fellowship with you who know little. We'll stop harassing you and treating you rudely and chasing you with our circumcision knives. You stop participating in the pagan stuff and learn quickly about what is food and what's not food. And I promise you, we can all live in harmony.
Right. Amen.
That's simple, isn't it?
It is simple.
So here's the conclusion of the matter. Purified heart does not mean perfect life. And we need to understand that and accept that. When there are people who come in among us, when we meet people in our walk, when we meet people at work, when we meet people in our neighborhood, we need to, our focus needs to be on whether they have been delivered and saved or not. If they have, then they have a purified heart. And it doesn't matter where they are in that journey as long as they're on the journey.
Right.
We never want to be seen as the person who is harassing them or annoying them. Why not just be their friend?
Yeah.
Why not just love on them?
Yeah.
Why not be loving and lovable? Why not just be a person they want to sit beside every Sabbath to hear Torah taught?
Yeah.
Instead of going, blowing your whistle and try to fix everything they say wrong.
Right.
You know, if they asked you a question, answer it. But answer it with gentleness and kindness and tenderness.
Yeah.
To make sure you're not annoying them.
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Give people room to grow. Let's all make changes we need to make to be more loving and to be more lovable. The key is as people start coming, when they sit beside you, the key is not that you unload everything you have learned on them the first 2 weeks they're here.
Right.
The key is that they found an open arm, somebody of like faith that they could walk in this journey with.
Yes, sir.
Are you with me? That's the key.
Amen.
Yahweh doesn't need you chastising them because they slipped up and said God.
Right.
Yahweh doesn't need you chastising them because they said Jesus.
Right.
Right.
What Yahweh is the one bringing them out of their darkness.
Right.
What Yahweh needs us to do is to love them and to encourage them to be here every Sabbath where Torah gets taught.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Amen. Next time, we'll talk about the balance.
Amen.
I want to make sure we understand the balance of walking in truth and being lovable. But today, let's just talk about being lovable.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you caught it or not. I said when they start coming in.
Amen. Yes, sir.
When they start coming in. But we could also say it this way. As we go out. How many more might come in if when we go out, we're not annoying and harassing?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
I'm not being critical. I'm just saying, if James had to correct his folks about being annoying, maybe we need correction also about being annoying and harassing.
Yes, sir. That's true.
We don't want to beat people over the head.
Right.
We want to encourage them to keep going. Come on. Come on.
Yeah.
We want to encourage, come out from that. You can't stay in that. No. That's bad. You got to come out of that. But man, if you're coming, come on, I'll help you.
Yes, sir.
Let's go together. Well, there's so much I don't know. Exactly. There's so much I don't know yet either. But let's just keep going.
Yeah.
Right? Amen. Stand up. Sure, I'm glad Yahweh was patient with me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I've been preaching a long time. I'm sure glad that a bolt of lightning didn't hit me every time I said something wrong. He was patient with me. I'm sure glad he's going to be patient with me today too.
Amen.
Because I don't yet know everything I need to know. Do you?
No, sir.
So we need his patience, his love, his kindness. And we'll give that to others.
Amen.
Yahweh bless you and keep you.
Yes, sir.
Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. As his name is put upon you, so shall he bless you. Hallelujah. You're dismissed. Have a good day.